Okay. Dawn, are you ready to get started?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for logging on and attending this morning's program. My name is Matt Schumann. I am on the programming team here at Cary Library. Before we begin, just a few notes. Please let me know if there are any technical issues, which I can try to resolve for you. You can send those to me in the chat. And if you have any questions or comments, you can also send those in the chat. This program was made possible by the generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. I'd like to now introduce cake artist Dawn Rice Norton. Dawn is an avid home chef who has been making gingerbread and cake decorations for many years. Dawn also often donates these creations to charities and libraries. We are thrilled to have her here today and learn all about proper gingerbread architecture. So please welcome Dawn.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here today. Mina always has something interesting and good to get me involved in, so this is fun. We're going to be finishing putting together this house. I partially assembled it just because it really needs to settle before you start to decorate. So we'll be doing the roof and the landscaping and putting the chimney on and things. The first thing that I would like to do is just do the roof fondant. So if you can see this, sorry, I should have mentioned it. This is the white is fondant, and I like to work with fondant just because there's so many things that you can do with it. You can create things, and we'll be making a little character in a little bit. You can cover things, you can make landscape things. So, you don't have to need to know how to make it because you can buy it. You can buy either the large boxes, and this happens to be, I think I got it at Michael's. Walmart also sells it. You can also get the small containers if you don't want to make the investment of a bigger one. But I like it just because you can do so many things with it. So we're going to take this fondant that I've tinted gray, and I use paste food coloring because it doesn't add any real amount of liquid to it. And you just, fold it in, put some in, fold it in, knead it around until you get the color consistency. So we're just going to sort of work this out a little bit before I roll it. And these are the roof pieces here that we're going to cover. So I've pre-baked those. And I brought my travel roller, so we didn't have to take up a large space. So I'm just going to roll this out, and it does not need to be thick at all. You can just, I don't know what measurement it would be, but just a thin, more than a piece of paper, but not really by much because you don't want it too heavy because, again, this is going to be the roof, and you want the building to be able to support it. So I'm just rolling this out, and you can see there's different colors because the color didn't get all the way through, but that's okay because it's, weathered or, just shows the texture of the roof a little better. So what I'm going to do is just roll this out nice and flat. And if your fondant gets a little bit hard, you can just knead it a little bit in your warm hands, and that'll allow you to smooth it out. Normally, I'd be using a big roller, it'd be a little bit easier, but in the essence of space and all the stuff that I needed to bring over, I didn't do that. So these are the pieces I'm going to cover. So I'm going to look and see if that's going to cover them, and that should cover both. But what I'm going to do is I use a pizza cutter to cut the fondant. I also use it when I'm baking to cut the pieces. So when you put the stencils on the gingerbread to cut them out, it makes a nice sharp edge. And if you're going to do that, then just keep it for baking. You don't want it used for something else. So I'm just going to square off the edges just because it's easier to then cut it. And you can reuse all this stuff. Fondant's really like clay. You really could do anything you wish with it. So before I cut it into strips, I'm going to take a fork And I'm just going to run the fork down it because that's going to give a little bit of texture to the roof pieces. So I'm just running stripes down it, which you won't really see until it gets on there. But making it sort of look like shingles. Don't worry if they're not straight. Then what I'm going to do is just cut it into strips across. And these I will lay on the house. These you want sort of the same width, but again, don't worry if it's not exact. And you can see that the pizza cutter certainly makes a straighter line than I could do with a knife. And because it rolls, it doesn't dig it up. If you tried to do this with a knife and drag it through, it would bunch up. So the pizza cutter really does a great job. Except when you wiggle it. Time to replace this one. It's getting a little, kind of a drunken pizza wheel. So you're going to place the piece of fondant in your little work area. And you can either just wet the fondant slightly or apply a little bit of icing. So here's my royal icing. What I should say about that, when you're making the royal icing, you really want to whip it well. It says 8 to 10 minutes. And the easiest way to make it is to use meringue powder. However, you don't need to go out and buy meringue powder. You can use egg whites. But if you're concerned about raw eggs going into the icing, or if you're not very good at meringue, the meringue powder really makes it a lot easier. They do have prepared meringue, prepared royal icing. I've never tried it, so I don't know how well it works. But I usually just make it using the royal icing. So I'm just going to put just a small amount on there, just sort of glue it around a little bit. And then I'm just going to spread it out because it just is for the roof pieces to stick to. And it doesn't need to be even. It doesn't need to cover the whole surface. You don't want to drop the gingerbread because they do break. I had a different house and that's at home in the trash because I dropped it. So this is version 2 of a house. So I'm gonna get the width of that. I'm just gonna cut the pieces down like this. All right, so get that out of the way. So we have our piece of gingerbread and I'm just gonna take a piece, a strip, and put it across, and we can trim them afterwards. You can overhang it slightly. And I'm doing this first so it has a little bit of chance to set up while we do our other things. So this is just going to make a nice roof. It's not heavy, as I said. We'll overlap them slightly. Save that one for the bottom. And just setting them on the gingerbread. And don't be afraid, don't worry if some of the icing shows through because, it's a winter house. It's going to look like snow. So it's all intentional. So you see. I also have these little scissors that I find very helpful. And again, I just keep them for this sort of stuff. We don't use them for other tasks. So I'm just going to trim the edges. The fondant's very forgiving, very easy to work with. So you have something that's going to look like a roof when you put it on. So I'm going to set that piece over here and grab the other piece and do the same thing. So we're just going to put a little bit of royal icing, spread it around. I'm going to have to cut some more fondant. And the other thing that's good about fondant is if when you're baking your gingerbread, it doesn't come out evenly or smoothly, or it's not as pretty as you like, you can cover it with the fondant, but you can also cover it with royal icing. I mean, that could make it smooth. It's opposite here. It could make a nice snowy roof, and it covers any mistakes or imperfections. And very easy. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put the strips on. Of course. Sometimes when you're baking the gingerbread, the pieces will shift, or they won't be the shape that you cut by the time they come out of the oven. They expand, or they'll, if you jostle the cookie sheet at all, or your oven bakes unevenly at all, sometimes they just don't come out even. But you don't really need to worry about that so much, because once you put it together, the royal icing will cover up a lot of gaps. And as I said, the decorations will cover. I do tend to roll the gingerbread pieces on parchment paper because it makes it a lot easier. You have to handle the pieces less to put onto your cookie sheet. And so there's less chance of misshaping them or breaking them or anything. So I roll them out on parchment paper, and that you can get at any you can get at any grocery store. You can get it at craft stores, and it doesn't burn. So you just roll it out just as I have the wax paper. I like to roll the fondant wax paper. It's a little bit better service. But you roll your gingerbread right out on that fondant, on that parchment paper, and put it on the baking sheet and put it right in the oven. It's easier to take the pieces out then, because you can just slide the paper off onto your cooling rack, and it keeps the pieces apart if you wanted to stack them. So again, I'm just going to trim these up, but this time I'm just going to do it like this. So those pieces over there, I'm going to reserve the smaller pieces that I have, because we may need that to fill in the gaps when we put the roof on. So there's the roof. So that's going to sit and be happy over there and dry up a little bit. So the next thing I wanted to show you, we're going to be doing some landscaping with our yard. So I wanted to do a couple things that also need to sit for a little bit. I'm going to show you just how to make a quick wreath. So this is fondant that is dyed green, and I'm going to work it a little bit to make it smooth. Because if you don't work it, it will show all little cracks and crustiness and things like that. So I just roll it a little bit. Good catch. And so I'm going to nip off a little piece here. I'm going to make it into a roll. Too much.
A question came in, Dawn.
Yeah.
Do you have a pattern for the pieces that you could share?
Yes. That went out.
So gingerbread recipe went out.
Oh.
But the pattern.
Not a template. I can send that, and we can get that sent out.
Sure. Yeah, we'll send it out in the recap.
Yep. Sorry about that. Thought I had sent it. If I'm going to make a creation, I go, and we were just talking about this earlier. If I'm looking at a building that I want to make, I'll go and take a series of pictures from all angles, and then sort of decide on the overall size that I want the building to be, and then just make everything sort of coordinate to that. But there are plenty of templates online, so you don't need to worry about that at all. So I have my little roll, and I'm going to make a little circle, and you can just squish it together. Doesn't matter because it's all going to be cut. So here's the little cuticle scissors, and I'm just cutting little nips. And this is going to look like a wreath, believe it or not. It will. So little, sort of little hairs, make it look like a little balsam wreath. If you like balsam. Some other pine if you don't care for balsam. So I'm just going to nip it up a little bit. So it kind of looks like a wreath, or it will. Find the right spot here. Whoa. So I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. You can, with fondant, you can put little balls. You can make a bow. What I have here that's going to go on there, I have these little, they're nerds. So they're little tiny nerds. And where I get all my stuff is I wander around candy stores, which these days isn't as easy as it used to be because, nothing is. So I go to the candy store. There's one in Marlborough that over by the gristmill. There's a candy store in the Marlborough Country Store. Has a beautiful little candy shop. It's old fashioned. And I just walk around and just pick up pieces and get ideas. And it's really a lot of fun. I mean, talk about kid in a candy shop. It's literal because basically that's what I am as a big kid. But there's also one over in Sharon on Route 1. So just after the stadium, if you're coming, I don't know what direction that is. I'm kind of directionally challenged. But it's right over by Rodman Arena. And it's called the Penny Candy Store. And they have all kinds of candies and just room after room of candies of all different kinds. So this isn't really well done. But all I've done is just wet it slightly, and it makes it very sticky, and just put some dots on there. So those will be decoration. I'm gonna set that there, let that harden a little bit, get the nerds out of the way. The other thing I wanted to show you, and it would be the same technique, is to make a tree. So again, I'm going to knead it up to get it all smooth and just make it, it's going to be more of a bush. So just makes flat on the bottom, sort of tapered at the top. And you would do the same thing. You just, make little nips in it. Make it look like a tree. Doing this one a little bit messy. But it looks like a tree at the end. Just nipping out little pieces here. And again, you could decorate this, or you could just leave it as is. You could use some icing and make a string of lights. So it's just a little tree. You could put a little star on top, whatever. Did I show that long enough? Okay, so the tree can sit there, the wreath can sit there. The other thing we're going to put around our house today, these little planters. So these are miniature Kit Kat bars, which I'm not seeing at the moment.
There was actually a question that had come in about the wreath, I think, of do you wet it with water or egg white?
No, this is just water. So I keep a brush again, just dedicated to this. Should be some mini Kit Kat bars here that I haven't used. Okay, we'll find them. They're right in front of me. The worst place to put something is in front of you because you can never find it. So these are just mini Kit Kat bars. And I'm going to turn them upside down. And I'm just going to put a little bit of royal icing on there. I wanted to talk about the icing too. For the assembly, you definitely have got to use a nice royal icing and do it well. For little spot things, I frequently use tube icing. So this one is cookie icing. That does also dry hard. You can get also the cake decorator tubes, and that dries mostly hard. So if you're doing small things, you can just do that. It's just as easy. So you just put a little bit of icing on the Kit Kat bar. And what I've put in these planters are miniature candy canes. But you could put anything. You can put sprinkles. You can put, again, the nerds. So they're sitting there, so we'll use those. And just set them in the icing. And it's going to make a cute little planter box. Oh, that's crushed up candy cane. They're probably right in front of me too. Oops. So that's just, so they look like little Christmas decorations. You roll around a lot. Again, these are just little mini nerds. But you can use whatever you like. You can put seasonal sprinkles. They have little things that are little trees. Oh, again, right here. So this is a container of mini candy canes, and that's what I had put in our original one here, and I just set them in there. But these are equally as cute. They're little nerds. Those could be leftover flowers. They could be Christmas lights. They could be anything. I'm just setting it in the planter. The next thing I wanted to show you, because Mina was commenting about figures, is a little gnome that we can make. This is one. This is another. And again, these are fondant. And you can use it like clay, as I said. Which, if you are looking to make something, you can go on YouTube and just look for clay tutorials, because not everybody works with fondant, but many people do things with clay, and it's really the same sort of a thing. So I have some red fondant that I've made into a small, similar shape to the tree. It's wide at the bottom, tapered at the top. And these gnomes don't have a lot of features, which is nice. So we don't have to worry about cutting their face or, shaping much of anything. So I pre-made these pieces in the essence of time. So we have 2 arms. And this is the beard. The technique I used with the beard, the same thing as with the wreath and the tree. I just made a triangle of this. This one happens to be white. It's hard to see in this, but it's nipped up so it looks like a beard, similar to those. These will be his feet. So they're just little flat discs of fondant. These are his mittens, and all I did was there was an oval. I made an oval and then cut the little thumb piece. Just nipped it, cut the little thumb piece, and rounded it off to look like a mitten. So we're going to put him together with water. So just like this one, I'm going to put a little bit of water on his feet. So we'll start there. So I'm just dipping the brush on the water. And the feet are going to go just under the front of him. Mm-hmm. So he'll be like that. If I can assemble it backwards. And then we're going to put on the beard. So we'll wet the back of the beard. And that goes up at the top. May not stick well at this angle. I may have to put them together laying down. So I'm going to put the beard. Sometimes it's hard to work with pre-made pieces, but the beard's going to go on here. It's not going to stick. It's a little bit too dry. So I'm going to go back to our save all icing here. And just the same thing, you just want to create a little bit of a sticky surface. So I'm just daubing a little bit of royal icing on there, or cookie icing, and stick the piece on. So there's his beard. His little nose goes in the middle of the beard. So just put a little daub. And this is a little piece, just a little piece that I've rolled into a ball. So we're going to put the nose there. Arms are going to go on the sides. So I'll just put a little bit of icing on the side. Put one arm here. One arm here. And the mitten will attach to that. It's easier when you're working with the fresh fondant, but we wouldn't have a ton of time. Okay. And then he's going to sit on his feet while they dry. That will all adhere. So sometimes if the fondant's not behaving, it will actually adhere as you go. So we're going to make his hat. I'm going to use green. Just going to work it around a little bit. Fold it a ball to make it smooth. Now at home, I have all kinds of little fondant tools, but this you can just take the edge of the paintbrush that I'm using, and I'm just hollowing out the inside of the piece a little bit, and then you can work the rest with the hands. So just going to make it hat shaped at the end. Draw up this. I'm going to make him a little bit different hat. I'm going to make his stick up a little bit more. So it's just a cone. Hollow it out a little bit. A little bit of water. And that's just going to sit on the top. So that's our little gnome. And again, if you're looking to make specific pieces, Santa Clauses, they have reindeers, they just about anything you might want to make. If there's something you want to make, just look on YouTube under clay tutorials or how to make. And I can pretty much guarantee you'll find what you're looking for. But again, might not find it in fondant, but you will find it in clay. All right, so that's our gnome. So he can get out of the way over there. Next thing I wanted to show you was different ways of doing walkways. So these are actually the Starlight Mints. So like they look like round candy canes. I placed them together just so they were barely touching. And again, on some parchment paper, put it on a cookie sheet and just baked it for just a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes. Just keep an eye on it at about 350. And that will make a nice walkway. You can also crush up candy. The ones I like to use are the like the Jolly Ranchers. You can crush those up and do the same thing. If you wanted to make a pond, you could take a bunch of blue Jolly Rancher, crush it up, set it on the parchment, give it a little cook, and that comes out like that. And then you can, you don't worry about the shape because you can just freeform with the snow around it. Here's a candy cane that I put in the oven, and it makes a nice sleigh runner if you wanted to put a sleigh together, or if you wanted to put it on the side of the building but didn't want it sticking out, you could do that. Another thing you can use for walkway is Ghirardelli Mids. So these are white and spotted, and you can place those down. I unwrap them, of course, and place them down. You can also use, this is candy, but it looks like rocks. It's chocolate inside. I haven't eaten one, but you can. And chocolate for most people works. These I got at the candy store in Marlboro, so it's an old-fashioned candy store. You can also get them you can get them by the scoop, or you can get them in a bag like this. They're just rocks, but they're chocolate. Another thing you can do.
Actually, a question had come in. If you wanted, what temperature do you bake the candy canes and whatnot at?
350.
Okay.
5-10 minutes. Like I said, just keep an eye on them. One thing I did do, and I warn you against doing it, I was making a large pond area for one of the things that I did, and I couldn't find blue candies. For some reason, I couldn't find blue Jolly Rancher. So I got menthol mints and broke them up and put them in the oven, and, kind of kept an eye, opened the oven. Oh, the menthol taste, the menthol smell was just overpowering. It almost knocked me over. So I don't recommend menthol mints. But that's all I could find. I think they were cough drops, but they're a nice clear blue, made a beautiful pond, but I don't necessarily recommend it. But just be aware. So this is just melting chocolate that I just spread onto a piece of wax paper, and then just put some sprinkles on it. So that makes a nice walkway if you wish. It all really depends upon what you want. What we're going to put on our house, two different ones. So again, this is going to be our house. Move these out of the way because we don't need them yet. So I thought on the front walkway, we could do some rocks. So I'm going to use the cheater icing and just spread a little bit. And again, this is very, very good for spot putting things together, for things like this to landscape, but not for assembling. If you're putting together a small house, and I'll show you some of the smaller tea-cake houses that I've put together over here to give you some examples of decorating. And so you just spread that out where you want it. And again, don't worry if you go over, because the yard's going to be all snow anyway.
There's another question that came in. How long does royal icing keep, and do you have to make it the same day you use it?
No, it'll keep for a few days, and you don't necessarily have to refrigerate it, because there's nothing, that's going to spoil about it. It's just used for decorating. But the one thing you do need to do, and I have it in a bowl here, I keep it tightly wrapped with plastic. You can also take a moist towel and put that over it. You just don't want it to dry out, because once it dries rock hard, and there is no recovery from that. If it gets crusty, you can whip it up again, but drying out, you need to make new stuff. So I'm just going to put some rocks. It's hard to do things from this angle. These are different colors. The ones I have over here are a little bit brighter colors, so there's all variations of them. And they're different shapes. These are slightly flatter, which is why I wanted to use these for the walkway. There
was another question that came in that was, what do you use for your for the base?
This, a good question. I meant to say that. Thank you very much for whoever asked that question. This happens to be a cake circle, a cake plate. So you can get these at a craft store. You can also, so this one's a little bit thick, it's very stiff, so it's not going to bend, which is how I broke the other house. Was I just used like a pizza cardboard, and you can cover it in foil. But just be careful that they're not very stable, and these have a little bit of weight to it. So the cake circles make good options. These cake plates make good options. You can buy a plastic platter You can get the holiday ones for a couple of dollars at your store. You can go to the dollar store and get a platter there.
Like turny things. You know, the ones that turn.
Yeah, you can put it on the Lazy Susan if you want to put it on display. Again, I'm going to show you these smaller gingerbread houses here. They're wannabe gingerbreads, really, is what I call them, because it's not real gingerbread. But I've done these with my kids for years, and I'll make a bunch of them up, and then they'll each get like a tube of icing, and we have the candy on a Lazy Susan in the table, and you have just all, varieties of candy. And it's amazing what the kids come up with. If you want to see some creative decorating ideas, get a room full of kids together. So that's going to be our walkway for now, and you can make more or less, whatever you like. In the back walkway, oh, I should add, I also in this house, you can see that there are stained glass windows that are going to be in this house. And the way I did that was, after I cut out the piece and cut out the window, I put the crushed candy inside there before I baked it, and just let it bake along. And it gets hot and bubbly, but when it comes out, it's smooth. So I did put lights in, and it's just a very small string of lights. And again, you can get those at the dollar store. You can get whatever color you like at the store. And I just drilled a hole up through the bottom and put the light string inside. And just, you want some low, some high. So I just made a little swirl in there. And then the battery box is going to be there. So for our back walkway, I'm going to use some gum and make a brick walkway. So this is Trident gum that I've cut into, the small pieces of Trident gum. And I've cut it, into halves and quarters. So we're going to make bricks out of those. So again, do your little icing here. And I'm using this a little bit more than maybe I normally would, just because I didn't bring a lot of royal icing. So I don't want to use it up. I want to use it for decorating. So again, you just put the little strip where you want it. A brick, kind of a walkway area. And so I've cut these into the squares and rectangles. And, start up here. Maybe it's going to be 1.5 little slices.
Move the battery a little bit.
Sorry. So just like brick is, you don't want all of the same size pieces together. You want to make it look like brick. You just alternate how you're putting the pieces on. Big ones and small ones. Make a row of just small ones, just to make it interesting. Just because.
Someone asked if you could just repeat how you did the windows again.
Sorry, yep. So when I cut out my patterns, and I had window patterns, and I should say you don't have to cut out windows. It does make it a little bit trickier to handle the gingerbread when the windows are cut out. But when I cut out my windows for this one, I took hard candy and put it in a baggie and banged it on the counter. Woke everybody up. And I just crushed it. So some of it will be dust, some of it will be small particles. And with the piece on the cookie sheet, I just filled in the middle, filled in the hole. So where the hole was for the window, I filled it in with crushed rock. This I used I used red, yellow, and green for this. You can use whatever color you like, or you can use all one color if you want them just yellow, or turn the light on so you can see the colors maybe. So I've done churches and things like this, but I just wanted to do this like this to be sure I told you about that technique. So you just put the crushed rock in the opening and just cook the piece as you would. And I would say too, when you're cooking these pieces, keep in mind, they're not going to be nice, soft, chewy cookies. You want them hard. You want them, they're construction materials. So cook them a bit longer. If you think they're cooked enough, cook them just that slight bit longer. And it doesn't matter if they're, you know, just dark at the edges. That's how you want them. You want it nice and firm and hard so that when you're building, they're not collapsing. So we have the rocks. So at this point, I'm going to try and put the roof that we've assembled on. So this I'm definitely going to use royal icing for. So here's our tube of royal icing. And I took the tip off because I want it a little bit thicker. You can use, I tend to put a connector in there. You don't have to. You can get these decorator bags anywhere. You can use any kind of tip, and you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of tips. You can just, at the grocery store, they have these decorator tips, and they're very inexpensive. I think this was only $1, a couple dollars perhaps. And there's all different tips. But the only tip you really need for this is a round tip. So this piece is what's inside here. And when you take this thing off, you can interchange tip sizes. So this one is a larger circle opening, a larger round tip. But I'm just going to go ahead and use it right from the bag. And the trick with royal icing is you want to get enough so it's going to stick, but not so much that it's going to be too much. I'm going to put kind of a thick bead along the edge of the front and back. To go back to the windows too, you don't have to cut the windows. You can use pieces of candy. You can draw them on with icing. You don't have to make a window. You can leave it open. So just an opening. Just gonna turn this side. Sorry, that's the gnome. Oops. Good thing that was off camera. The gnome hit the dust. So here's our roof pieces. So what I like to do is make sure that the edge of the roof piece is right on the edge for the end. So I don't worry if they match up. I'd like a little bit of overhang down there, but I don't worry about that either. So I'm gonna, and if your royal icing is a good consistency, that will pretty much stay there. Just give it a little, don't push too hard. Done that before they break. So take your piece. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to turn it around, but I'm just setting that right on that edge. Just going to hold it for a minute, and you will see gaps, but you won't when it's finished. So the royal icing will take up most of those gaps, and you can also ice over. For some reason, this one's not sitting nice. Sometimes when you put fondant on and you put icing on and things just shift and they become different shapes. Also, I wouldn't necessarily, if I was doing this at home, put the roof right on before it was fully dry. So what I'm going to do here is let that be there. Then I'm going to take, at the top, there is a bit of a gap. Sure that won't tip it too far, but there is a bit of a gap, but I'm just going to come across that with the royal icing. And I'm going to use some of our pieces that are left from the, when we cut the roof pieces. So I'm just going to take these pieces And they're gonna bridge the gap. And they just look like the edge of the shingles. Hands are shaking. So they're bridging our little gap here. So just as I said, don't worry about if your cookies are square or brown or you know, a little bit of flour on them, doesn't matter. You can cover up most any little blemish as you decorate. So these are just gonna go on there. The other thing that's going on this roof is a chimney. And just as I did with this gum on here, I mean with this fondant, I did a similar thing with gum. It's right in front of me, stuff kills me. So I'm gonna take this chimney. So this is the chimney pieces that are gonna be in the template, and I've put them together, and then I covered them in royal icing. And this particular pattern is, this is gum. For those of you who are older than dirt, you might remember the Mittens gum. The, you know, it's like an anise flavor. And so, but you can also use the same fondant and do the same thing. So it sort of looks like a chimney.
Someone asked, and I'm not sure if you, I think you might have said it, or I'm not sure if it's gum too, but the shutters on the windows, or what material are those?
Yeah, that is also, that's gum. So that's fruit stripe gum. So I'm going to put extra royal icing on this because I want it to stay, and it's a funky shape. And again, it's just going to look like snow. So the indent, so out of the pattern, is a triangular shape, and that's just going to straddle the edge. So we're going to set that there. That's just going to sit on top like a chimney. And you can finish the top with royal icing. You can add some white fondant just to finish off the edge. And I'm just going to go around the edge of the chimney and add in a little bit more royal icing. And again, it will just look like fallen snow by the time you're done with it. You don't have to finesse. So there's our chimney. We won't have time to do it, but what I'm going to do on the back, so on the back wall, what I'm going to do is take some of the rock, and I'm going to make a chimney going up the back wall. So I'm going to do the same thing as we did with the walk here, and I'll put a strip of royal icing, and then I'll build up the chimney. So it will be a stone chimney coming up the back there. At this point, we can probably put our door on. So you can see what the hole that I cut here for the door is a rectangle, but I had cut a little bit nicer shaped door for another project that I didn't end up using. And so I covered it in, this is a brown fondant, light brown. And these are just little decorations, you know, just little hardware and a handle. So I'm going to take the fondant, take the door and put a little bit of royal icing, spread that out. And do this after you've done your walkway and your entryway. If you want to put, I did put some little bit of fondant here to make sort of a mat. You can make little stairs, but do the door afterwards, because if you do the brick up to it and then you try and put the door on, it's not going to fit. So do that afterwards. And again, you don't have to cut a door. You can draw a door. You can use different candy for the door. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you can do in the yard. Don't be afraid to use pre-made things. This is a tree that I bought, and it's hard candy, and I bought it at the candy store. Don't be afraid to use that in your yard for a tree. The other things that you can do for trees is our fondant tree will go in there somewhere. Our window boxes, I'm going to build up the side and add a little bit more, and then the boxes are going to go underneath the windows. And I'll just attach those with fondant and royal icing. The other things you can make trees out of, this is a large gumdrop with a Tootsie Pop. And don't worry if they're green, who cares? You know, it's just Christmas things. You can take a small gumdrop and a mini Tootsie Pop and do the same thing. And when you set them down in the royal icing, they will stand up, but you can place those around, especially if you want to do sort of a Willy Wonka kind of thing or a Whoville kind of thing. This is a thing that I saw on Pinterest. And so this is just one of those, you know, the sour gummy things. And this is a toothpick. And I just laced it around. And so that makes sort of a wonkery kind of tree as well. And that you can put up against the house. My hand is covering it. Put up against the house, but it's just a different thing. You can also do it sideways if you want bushes. I'm going to show you some of these houses here. So these houses are little ones that I do out of tea biscuits. And these I put together. I cut the tea biscuit. And only half part I have to cut is the end, and put them together with cookie icing, and then set them out with a Lazy Susan of candy, and the kids just decorate them as they wish. But this, I wanted to show you some different options for roof. These are little gum squares. These are nerds. That's gum on the side. You can do different color schemes. This is gold and white, with gold balls. You put a little star. This is a chocolate covered pretzel. They are good for decorations. You can make fences with them. You can use nonpareils. That makes a nice roof.
Ooh, what was the cracker or cookie of the?
It looked called tea biscuit.
Oh.
This again, I'm using a lot of gum this year. This is gum and little gummy bears. This is a candy cane based thing. So mini candy canes and some little miniature pieces of candy and crushed up candy cane for the roof. Little squares for the windows. Oh, I just wanted to give some ideas of decorating things. Don't be afraid to go big too. I mean, I have this big pop that you could set, not this theme necessarily because it's more of a cottage, but if you're doing a nice funky seasonal thing, just take it off the stick or leave part of the stick there. You can just snap the stick off with a little wire cutter and you can prop that up. That makes a really cool big tree. You can make a small tree, same thing, smaller pop. I'm going to make a frozen kind of themed thing. So I have rock candy and that will make sort of a tree looking thing.
Could I interrupt for a question?
Yeah.
Someone asked about the tea biscuits. Are they better than graham crackers? And have you ever used chocolate to attach things together?
Yes, I've used chocolate, and actually chocolate's really good. I've taken the houses actually after I put them together and actually dipped them in chocolate and made really cool little homes. You can dip the edge and put the pieces together. It's good for smaller pieces like that. I wouldn't do it for something this size, but you can. I wouldn't. This is a nerd rope, and they're kind of cool. I don't know if you've ever seen them. It's just a gummy thing in the middle, and it's got little nerds on it. And you can use those as decorations. You can line the edge so it looks like, you know, Christmas lights. You can use it on the walkway to edge. They're just cute little things. And again, it's just from prowling around the candy store. Here's some sticks. You can cut them. You can use them this way. You can put them across the top. These are smaller size sticks, which would probably be about the right height to put. You can put on the edge here, and they really dress up the corner. And if there's any gaps or misshapen, covers a lot of territory. And don't be afraid to use sort of non-traditional sort of Christmas color thing. This I got at Michael's, and it's a really cool, I don't know if you can tell the colors, but it's like an aqua and a rose and a mauve and some white. This is going to be used for another project because I'm using mauve and white. But, use non-traditional colors, blue, pink. You can use wrapped candies around the edge. I've done that, little toy soldiers or little, like these are snowmen. Another way I've made a snowman, this is a Ghirardelli truffle, and I unwrapped 2 of them. I thought I had one. I think everybody knows what Ghirardelli is. Are you familiar with Ghirardelli? So anyway, these are the two of the balls, and I put them together with royal icing. This is a fondant scarf and nose, and this is just a black licorice from this mix. This mix here, old-fashioned candies, but those offer a lot of decorating possibilities. Crushed up candy, ribbon candy, very good. You can get, these are little snowmen. Little stars, gummy stars. Those are the big gumdrops. What I'm going to use for it's kind of a railing. So this is a mini candy cane. Open it up here. I'm going to put this at our front walkway here. As kind of a railing. You can do it like that. You can do it like this. I'm going to put a line just on the edge of the walkway there. It just sort of dresses up the entryway. Just set it right in there. Again, don't worry about the depth of it because it's going to look like snow. I don't know if you can tell, speaking of snow, I didn't want to sprinkle it around, so I sprinkled it ahead of time. But on the top of the snow, which is just royal icing, there's a glimmer, and that is edible glitter. And that adds kind of a sparkle, a shine, a little bit of color, because it will reflect the color. Trying to give as many examples of things. Here, the other thing I wanted to finish off, here I have a big gumdrop, and then inside here is a toothpick and fondant for the post, but this is going to be our mailbox. And I know I have our mailbox here somewhere. So we have a little golden mailbox that I made, and it's going to sit on the edge of the post. Here it is. And this is right in front of me. And this is what I mean about the fondant seeming like clay. So this is a mailbox shape, and it's got a little flag on it. And so I'm just going to finish assembling that and just set it there. So it looks like a little mailbox. Underneath that, I'm going to put a little bit of snow. And I'm going to pile up the packages because everybody's doing the online ordering this year. So all the packages are going to be dumped at your mailbox probably. If you're lucky, they get there. And you can just set a few packages around the edge of the mailbox. What else we wanted to show you? I have so much stuff to show you. Here's a little snowman. This is a fudge covered mini Oreo. And so I just put 2 of them together with a bit of royal icing and then just sort of decorated him up a little bit. If you set him in a plop of royal icing, little plop, set him in it, he'll stand up. So really the limits are your own imagination, your Pinterest trolling, YouTube. They have all kinds of great ideas. Sometimes I walk through the candy store and just sort of start laughing because I can picture how I'm going to use something. And the people there are used to me now, but I think initially they thought I had some kind of a problem. But I didn't mind. I just laugh about how I'm going to use that particular candy. Yeah, we're about an hour, so I didn't know if there were any further questions or a quick wrap up, or there's so
Do you
much to
wanna?
cover. It's hard to cover in an hour.
Yeah.
There really is. I mean, this is incredible. I've only done like a basic one. There was also the you had the slideshow. Do you want to show that real quick?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay. Let's see. Hopefully that's showing for everybody.
Yeah,
You also have
the Elliott Church in Natick. It's a historical old church, and this is one I did go up, took several pictures, and it was raffled off for programming at the Bacon Free Library, and actually it went back to the church. So
Wow.
that's one of it there. Oh, forgot about these. These are little books. So those are fondant books, and then the covers are printed on sugar sheets. And this was for one of Mina's projects. Those are little cupcakes. So they're little books for a program they were doing at the library.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool. This is just a chapel. I don't know. I just sort of thought about it and thought what shape I wanted it. That's also lit. And it's just rock. And I did the walkway, these little rocks, but the rocks on the building are actually bits of fondant that I rolled up, colored and rolled. And so that took a little bit of work there, but you can see the snow is just thrown on there. You can throw confectioner's sugar all over the place if it's your own home. So that's that. This is the Bacon Free Library. Some of the detail, that's the front of it there. That building was a little bit difficult to do because it was on multiple levels. And on the back side there, you can see their little sitting area, and there's some gargoyles up above the windows there that are hard to see, but that's the Bacon Free. This is the Eiffel Tower. That was almost impossible to put together. That was a pain, but I did that after the Paris attack. So I did it for kind of a reminder of peace.
Can I ask, is that a bulb of garlic on the top?
Oh, it's fond.
Oh, all right. I didn't know if you
Yeah,
were just
but-
getting extra creative.
I was gonna put a wreath on the door here, on that thing, so I'm just gonna plop it there. We forgot about it. Just stick it on. Yeah, no, that's oh no. Yeah, it's all edible. This was a fun one. This was The Grinch That Stole Christmas. So the book is Gingerbread, covered in some royal icing and fondant, and I drew the Grinch from the book. So there's edible markers. So it's hard to see where he is, but this is the scene where it's toward the end and they're standing around the tree singing, Dahu. And I had to actually look up the words and see what they were. But you can see in the back, the Grinch is hanging off the mountain and the dog is hanging down. But the Who's are just singing along. And this is another time where I just sat there chuckling to myself, just making these little creatures, the little people, the Who's. It doesn't show Cindy Lou there, but little blue eyes, and it was fun. But that's something that the big lollipop and things that would work well with there. The red is licorice, it's just imagination.
Wow.
These are little carolers. That's a gazebo with a tree, and these are just little carolers outside singing. I think that's Medway Library, I think, right? Yeah. The top is, I think I was using fondant there too. This is one of the historical homes in Medway. The windows reminds me. Those windows, you can get gelatin sheets. You can order them online. It's just called sheet gelatin. There's different grades of it. You don't need to buy the really, really expensive one. And you cut them into pieces and put them on the inside of the window before you finish buttoning up the roof. And they look like really old-fashioned windows. They have like a diamond pattern to them. They're really cool. And that's the barn that's next to it, and some farm animals and some carolers and a squirrel and a bird and stuff. So
I think we have another angle too. I think this was the last image.
yeah, so it's beside a pond. That's the pond that is menthol. You can see it's kind of big. And there's a little boy laying there doing a snow angel. There's somebody on a sled, the skaters. There's a family bringing their tree home. I mean, you can add whatever detail. To me, the joy of this is the decorating. I'm not much a fan of the baking, but it's kind of a necessity when you want the piece you want. But I really enjoy the decorating, and I think of little details to add in here and there. And it's just such fun. I mean, you really can have a lot of fun with it. We have a couple snow days coming up, so it might make it more bearable to have some fun with some gingerbread.
Well,
That's
thank
what I
you.
do. Lack of spare time.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I mean, these are really incredible.
If people have questions, they can send them in, and I'm sure Mina can ask, and I can send them out, and I'll get that template sent as well. This is on the smaller size for what I normally do, but it's very manageable.
Yeah, you have a lot of, even if there aren't many questions, you have a lot of thank yous and saying that you're brilliant and organized and paced.
Wow, fun group.
Yeah, splendid.
This is not my business. I'm actually a physical therapist. This is just something I do on the side. And I just have fun. It's relaxing. It's fun. I don't do it for business because I think easily it could get not so much fun if you're trying to do this stuff on a deadline. And I do cakes and things too, but only for people I know. And so if it's messed up, yeah, Mina. She always has good projects for me to try. Have you ever done this? No, but let's try. But you know, the sky's the limit, really.
How did you get
it out?
Yeah, we
Always.
figure it out.
How did you get started? If I could just ask that.
Kids. In a word. And it's fun. When the kids were small, we always used to make a small gingerbread and make it friendly stuff like raisins and nuts and seed. And we'd set it out and the squirrels could eat it. But you really, if you're going to do that, just use a minimum of icing if you can, because I don't think it's very good for their little teeth. Probably not their little bodies either, but they used to have great fun just smashing it and eating it. And, you know, we just set it out in the yard and just let them have that. But you can do dried fruit, and birds came to it. It was kind of fun to just set it out and just gift it.
Wow.
They didn't say thank you, but I could see by their little smiles, they enjoyed them.
Well, if there are no questions, thank you so much, Dawn. This was really incredible, and it will be available on YouTube if people would like to watch later. We'll send out the link in the recap as well as the instructions for the wreath and whatnot.
Sure.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Hope you all have a good day.
Bye. Be safe in the snow.
Wow.
You don't realize how much stuff there is that you want to cover, and you just can't cover it all.
Just a couple of people are
No.
still here.
You did a tremendous amount. That's amazing.
These are incredible. I'm so envious. I've only made like one real basic one with like maybe I frosted the like border or something.
Yeah.
This is like, oh my God, you can go so far.
For a different project I have, we're doing all no bakes. So I bought a kit house and we're gonna pimp that house, clamp it, I guess. Not really pimp it, but you know, really dress it up. And I'm gonna use like a mauve color and a white color and roll out some snowflake shapes and just do it differently. And then one out of Pop-Tarts, although I don't think you can say Pop-Tarts. You have to say toaster pastries.
That's right.
Trademark.
Yeah.
And then the tea biscuits. And actually, I can send you that too, probably, if you want to do that. It's just fun with kids. And they're pretty indestructible once they're dry.
Wow.
That's like my favorite thing.